Paul Casey, paulcasey.vegas. And I also produce a lot of events in Las Vegas, but one of the ones that has always been true to my heart and a true passion for me is Halloween. As a little boy, I always grew up enjoying that holiday. It was a wonderful time when you could have a lot of fun with it. So with that, I created an event in Las Vegas called the Sin City Halloween event. And that's been going on for about 5 years. So today I'm really excited. We're going to launch a new Zoom meeting type of format regarding horror. And as you can see behind me, I brought in my favorite guys, Michael, and Michael. And excuse me. So with that in mind, I'm going to ask a special guest to come on with us to talk today. You're going to love him. He's a wonderful talent. He is living down in Bullhead, Arizona. And with no further ado, Ralph Delgado, how you doing, sir?
Mr. Casey, how are we, sir?
I'm excellent. It's good to have you on here. Why don't you join? Yay, there it is. Okay, so tell us a little bit, Ralphie, about your background, just a little bit, and then what you do for a living.
First and foremost, we hail from Burbank, California, the media capital of the world, the real media capital of the world. And what we got going on right now, we have a company called the Movie Alchemists. We do prop replicas, gifts, and now we are taking on mask rehauls for the one and only Mr. Michael Myers. So what we've been doing recently has been taking in the clientele as much as we can and shipping out good quality masks at an affordable price. And that's where we've been headed this whole time. And this chapter has now been opened, so we're going to start going through with a fine-tooth comb, if you'd like to say.
I'm an amateur mask, I guess, rehaul, is that what we call it, or overhaul?
Yeah.
So I did all my masks behind me. I did those, and
very good, sir.
But that's because I had the passion for it. I was a huge fan of what we're going to talk about today, 1978, John Carpenter's Halloween. And the reason we're going to start with that, because that is the gold standard. It began the slasher genre. But let me ask you this: what brought you to making masks or rehauling masks or doing that kind of service?
Again, starting hailing from Burbank, we're around the horror community. We're around the business, as everybody likes to say it. And it's always been a dream. It's always been something that has kept us going. It's always been something that we've wanted to do. And being influenced by other companies such as Mr. Nick Malpagano and Justin Mabry and some of the fine names that we have going on right now and fine companies that we have going on right now, it was a necessary step to not only get our name out there, obviously, but to actually get people to see what we have to offer that would, I guess, assist these other companies that we don't work through we're not like every other company. We don't have like a line that stuff's coming through. We take everything on one by one, and we want to be able to assist these masks to bring them up to par, to get you guys to have something that is movie accurate, something that is horror acceptable, I guess you would say.
Let me ask you this, Ralphie. How long does it take you to turn a mask? And do you always make it screen accurate, or do you change it maybe to what the customer's needs are?
Well, we have two different versions that we do. What we do is we've never actually fully stated that we take on an actual screen accurate type mask. It's more or less the basic fundamentals that make Michael's mask what it is. So what we would do is more of a weathered kind of a look. Stuff like, for instance, here we have a beautiful H2 right here. And the H2, without having to go all the way through, like I said, assembly lines or anything like that, we take it as a blank and we will bring in the skin tones. We will, accentuate what is going on with these masks and stuff. Mm-hmm. And instead of giving somebody like how would we say, basically me telling them what they want, we don't do that. We'll have them just tell us what they want, and then we'll go from there. And if it isn't what they want, it's what we have to offer, really. And that's
okay. Let's talk about some of these things, because I've been as a little boy, I made some of my costumes growing up, and I'm big on that. And it was always the beauty of Halloween allowed us to reflect on having fun. It wasn't about how much money did you spend like Christmas and
Definitely.
other events. This is sort of a community thing. And right now, Sin City Halloween has grown to thousands and thousands of people have come to this event. We had over 10,000 people attending our parade downtown Las Vegas before COVID-19 hit. So I'm
Right.
very excited that we're starting to reach out again. Things are starting to open up. This year I have about half a dozen events that are more community oriented,
Right.
trunk or treat, and making it family oriented with the community to say we can have fun and we focus on the children. The adults
Definitely.
will figure it out for themselves,
Definitely.
but the kids, they only get to be kids once. And my boy is a good example of my passion for the horror genre and such. So he loves Michael Myers. He's met all the Michael Myers actors for the most part.
Right.
I've become friends with most of them. Actually, it's funny on my Michael, my number one here. I don't wear that anymore, and the thing about it is that inside it there's a signature from every man and one woman, one woman that have signed it, and I call it the man behind the mask, including
Very cool.
John Carpenter. And we
Very
have
cool.
done for Halloween. I have actually done John Carpenter Day. He put his handprints in the cement. He signed they sit with the signature with the actual same identical knife that was used in the first movie. So it's a lot of fun. People that guys like Jim Winburn and George P. Wilbur and Dick
Definitely.
Warlock, and I'm trying to think of Tommy Lee Wallace, etc., etc. All the people that actually made a difference in the early versions of the franchise. So let's go to the gold bearer, in the standard for these movies. And here it is, 2 years later. This
Yes,
movie
sir.
has now
Going on
been
42.
released again over the weekend. Halloween Kills has hit um, the theaters, and an amazing number with the turnout of over $50 million in one day. Lord have
Right.
mercy, that is a pretty impressive number.
Where it should be,
It,
where it should be.
well, there's definitely a need and desire and a market for it, because we go in there and to borrow a line that is used by Sheriff Brackett. Everybody deserves one
Right.
good scare. So
Right.
Halloween 1, 1978. It was finished in 3 weeks. No budget, $300,000. A skeleton crew. Same guy that made the mask was production and every other thing. Drive the car, probably made the sandwiches, etc. And it was you have it, and it launched some major careers.
It really did. It really did. I think for that, it would be kind of like the gateway, as everybody has their own gateway drug or whatever you'd like to call it. It would be something that I would helm as it was a gateway for me. It was something that brought me to that next step. Halloween was something that wasn't just a guy running around in a mask. You know what I mean? It was more or less like, what is going on here? What is this? There was something not only with for me, it was one of the lead protagonists in a movie that was also a villain. That was not other than, Luke, I am your father or something. It was better than that. It was more than that. You didn't know what was lying behind that mask. And then being led with Donald Pleasance and whatnot, that was something that it still to this day is very, very captivating to me, that I can't get past that. And maybe it's more or less I think Donald Pleasance's is his response to just even a simple question, how he can just draw it out and whatnot. And it's magic. It's pure magic. It really
Well,
is.
let's go on that. And when you think about how many times have you actually seen that movie?
All right. Well, if we have time to count, no, I would say honestly, maybe be close to about 500 times. As you can see behind me, not only do I have my VHS segueing into my Blu-ray, I also own the first movie. I would say uh, about 12 times, and each one is, not like super different. I mean, there's formatted a different way and whatnot. There's extra features and whatever, and it was more or less kind of like being a kid going into a store, finding that toy that made you scream at mom to buy it for me. It was like that, the same thing. Buying something, seeing it like that, and then seeing what the next chapter had to offer. What story do they have that happened behind the scenes? What did they feel when they were in the middle of this filming and stuff like that? And being able to hear more from Miss Deborah Hill, I thought it again. It's magic. It really is. It really is.
I have to tell you, I agree. I probably have seen it that many times as well. I mean, you're thinking 40 years. I've seen it
Right.
since I was a kid. And my
See this.
mother,
See this movie dropped. I would say 6 years before I was born.
so
So you
yeah,
know.
well, I was born. So there you go. Starting around. With me, I would watch these movies, specifically this, because I was just a young teen in my teens
Right.
at the time. Buddy of mine talked to me, let's go. And obviously it was rated R at the time. So,
Yes.
I just had turned that age at the time. So we're watching it. But before that, my mom said to me, "What's wrong?" She says, "I'm scared." She says, "Well, what are you doing?" I'm watching the monster movies. And she goes, "Well, why are you doing that?" Because I like it.
Exactly.
Everybody loves it. Why do we get on a roller coaster? Why do we go to to look at something crazy and that scares us a little bit? Why do we watch a movie? Because we suspend disbelief and we have fun.
Yeah.
Carpenter's, the Carpenter brilliance was that what made it so in historic, so iconic, was that he had a mask and he had music. And he
Yes.
didn't have, but the one thing he didn't have was money. So what he did, he used what he had and he relied on his intuitiveness,
Yes.
studying Alfred Hitchcock, and it was implied and
See,
more into the mind of the viewer.
that's a great point. So like, especially with John. John to me is like it's kind of like meeting a friend or an uncle that you just barely know, but when you see him, kind of I would compare him just his laid back cool. You could see that in the movie making. And you really
Mm-hmm.
can. It's something that seems familiar. Even when if you haven't seen something that John has done, when you finally watch one of John's movies, it feels familiar, and that's I think for him, not only just being one of my favorite directors, not just because of Halloween. I mean, his whole catalog, what John has going is one of the very few, I would say, second to Hitchcock, that is somebody that is very what you just said, very captivating, and that's really really cool. That is as lame as I could put it, is just it's cool.
Well,
It's something that
when I met him, I reached out to him. We were going to talk about doing at Sin City Hall. We have actually honored the first person out of the box was Lon Chaney's family.
right,
And we had that and that's my all-time favorite classic guy is the
very
Wolfman.
cool.
I mean, it was sort of, they, the contrast of having a person, the Beauty and the Beast kind of thing that always works. I mean, here it is, this man's troubled and he didn't choose this life and
Exactly.
thus, but he has to deal with it. And, it's sort of like what we have to deal. Certain things we change because of the circumstances. Plus the score is amazing.
Oh,
And
it definitely is. Definitely
yeah,
is.
it's there. My second favorite is obviously you get into the people like Karloff, Lugosi, and then
Yes.
for me it was the Creature from the Black Lagoon. I always
Right.
thought the Creature from the Black Lagoon was again the same scenario of the Wolfman. You
Yeah.
know, misunderstood. He just was fascinated, and then they try to kill him. And man always does that. Man always
Yeah.
wants to destroy something he doesn't understand. And if you
Well,
look at
that's what I got from Lon Chaney. Just even watching The Wolfman, watching we'll go by character name, by watching Mr. Talbert's face, and how he can emote without really even saying anything. Like when he meets the fortune teller,
sure,
that alone it gives me the chill because you don't see him transform yet. There is no transformation yet.
no,
It's more or less being told what's going to happen.
right.
That to me that was a part of the
But
transformation.
this is the point, Ralphie. When you think about it, Carpenter saw that and he
Definitely.
relied on that because people try to destroy this character and medicine couldn't fix it. So he was completely flawed. The beautiful thing about it was that he also didn't speak. And that
Right.
was based upon Carpenter's, experience with meeting went to visiting a mental institute.
Yes.
and he saw a young boy that was in there, and he saw the evil in that boy's eyes. And
Definitely.
this bothers me because that is what we're dealing with today in today's society. We are destroying youth and people through social media, which we're using right now, but we're not trying to understand. We're trying to manipulate. We're controlling. It's sort of what Orwell said. Forget about the truth. That does have no relevancy. What we're dealing about is the perception, and we're going to tell you what the truth is. And that's what
Exactly.
you're seeing. Now, for those that have watched the new movie coming out, this will be played in on that. But we're not going to talk about that. But when you think about Carpenter and what he did with this, the soundtrack in the original, it was sort of boring until he
Yeah.
came up with the music.
Yeah.
And I had a conversation with him, and I come from a music background. There's a lot about my background, but regardless of that, I was talking to him, and he was surprised that I understood what he was talking about, because he was using unusual signatures in music. He was using a 5/4 time,
Yes, it
which
was.
means 5 beats, 2
Yeah.
4, which is
Which
one
is
2 3 1
Halloween.
2
I mean,
1 2 3 1 2,
that
and
beat
that's what you
alone.
have. And that music, I don't know if you have musical background, but the
I
point
do.
is that, but when he does that, he also borrowed that from Take Five, an old jazz, standard.
Yeah.
And then obviously he did descending minor thirds. So for those
Yeah.
of you that are music people, understand that the mood is created by the absence of sound, and then the introduction of sound music. Like
Yeah.
when it gets quiet, Ralphie knows what I'm talking about. When it starts to get quiet, something's going to happen.
Exactly.
Okay. And usually it's your girlfriend, your wife, or your boyfriend grabbing onto, hey, what's going on here? You know what I'm saying? And it's more the fear factor in the brain that we're creating. So the
I,
master
I
did that, and he was
I
great at
believe that
doing
that's one of the first movies for me that you could actually, the soundtrack from Halloween alone evokes evil. I mean, you could even just when you see the girls walking, when you see Annie, Linda, and Lori walking down the street, and they see Devon Graham driving his car, uh, it there's an unsettledness about it. About Laurie's theme alone, there's an unsettling feeling. Like
it.
you don't
Yes.
know what it's coming, but you know what's coming. And it's very like how you just said, the 5/4 time and all that. I mean, that's really crazy
Well,
to
that's
think.
on the main theme, but on
Yeah,
Lori's
that's
theme,
the main thing.
it's what we call being
That
played
that came from
freely.
bongos.
Yes.
That came from him playing bongos, and then that was interpreted into the piano and whatnot. I think that's incredible because that
I
was one of the first movies for me that actually had that whole, just like how he presented the video to somebody in a college, and she said, well, this isn't scary, there's nothing scary about this movie at all. And then seeing the movie again with the soundtrack, completely different.
Well, the best part
Exactly
about
the
his
measurement.
direction, though, he directed it and edited it, was that he stayed out of the way.
Yeah.
It's sort of like having a conversation. You and I are having a conversation. I try to stay out of the way when you're talking, and vice versa. So there's an exchange, because it's that dramatic pause between segments that sets up the next pause. And there's some
Right.
humor, some funny stuff. You
Right.
know, there's always the teenage sex element, which, people fall for that. But that's just a ploy to show the vulnerability of the characters.
Definitely.
Wouldn't you agree?
I do.
Totally.
Yeah, yeah. Thanks,
DJ's funny.
Linda.
I was waiting for you to say that. You usually
Oh,
use that comment a lot. So
oh,
let's
I do. I
so
really
let's
do.
break down. Let's break it down in this part of why the strengths of Halloween Night 1, 19. We call it H1, but it's
Sure.
1978, John
Yes.
Carpenter's Halloween. And I think let's start with the opening, introduction of the pumpkin and the music.
Yes.
Why don't we talk about that?
I honestly think that that's a not like the perfect opening, but the perfect opening. To have that, the slow dragging build in into the mind's eye, basically into the pumpkin eye, with that music, there's a cause of dread. And there really is. It's very it could be uplifting sometimes. I mean, like you literally get kids nowadays, instead of playing chopsticks, they're playing the Halloween theme.
Sure.
It's so very captivating, and I think that's what draws people in, is that music alone, without even having to have that pumpkin. If you had just the orange credits going with that music, you'd still be dragged into that, what's going on.
I think the reason is because well, there's 2 points. Had there not been a pumpkin, you'd be like, what's happening? Why aren't we seeing something?
Right.
But that's very Romero when you think about how he did
Oh,
his
definitely.
intro and
Definitely.
and remember there's influences there. But I think the purpose of the showing of the pumpkin was that it wasn't that this is it behind me. That's a recreation of that pumpkin. And I used that, by the way, when I shot my commercial with George P. Wilbur, who was Halloween Michael Myers 4, 5,
4,
and
5, and
6. And then you had Jim Winburn, who did the stunts, and he fell off. He got shot and he falls off the balcony in Halloween 1. So I did a parody with them for promotion, and we used that opening. But the point is that if you look at this pumpkin behind me, he doesn't look so sinister. He's sort of smiling, but
yeah.
he's not, it's not a perfect pumpkin. So the beauty of it is that they were showing, the idea was that it was pumpkin, the Halloween was supposed to be fun terror, or spooky, scary, hocus pocus, Disney
Right.
kind of thing, which was the thing. Okay. And nobody had ever addressed it. But what happened as the pumpkin becomes closer, as the camera starts to focus in and come closer to the pumpkin, it starts to go dark, and the transformation of the pumpkin from being happy to the dark, from light, from good to bad, or good to evil. And you see it in the lighting inside, and it focusing on the eye, and the
Yeah.
music. It's all daunting, and you're going, wow,
Well,
this is
to also
pretty
be
heavy.
followed by the poem, the Black Cats and Ghosts and Witches. I that is another thing. That's another key element for the end of that song, I think, to slide into that opening, and now we're looking at the house.
Sure, the reveal from
Definitely.
behind the tree, which is still there. You go behind the
Yes.
tree and you see the house, which is not there anymore. It's down
No.
the street.
Yes,
Um,
it is.
I do not want to give away spoilers for other people's movie. They're going to see the movies, but we'll address that, because by the time the weekend's over, I think most of the
We'll have it.
people that wanted to see it, we can talk about it because that's what they want to do. But the point
Definitely.
is that the reveal from behind a tree, and you don't know what's going on, and all of a sudden, boom, you see a house, and you're hearing it, and it sort of sets up the whole dialogue of what's going on with young Michael Myers, and we're
Yes.
seeing it from the beauty of us from his point of view, and the camera is following Dean Cundy's beautiful cinematography,
Oh yeah.
following using that Panasonic going in there and following up, and all of a sudden, and the beauty going back to the music, which nobody really talks about.
Right.
All of a sudden, he's looking around, he looks up at the window after he sees his sister and her boyfriend in, and he backs up, and all of a sudden, what happens? You hear the string effect, which is
Definitely.
very Psycho, very Bernard Herrmann's, the thing,
Totally.
all that kind of stuff going on. And you see that and you go, uh-oh, that tells us without saying anything, hanky panky is afoot. And
Yeah.
Michael, I don't know what triggered him to do that, but then all of a sudden you go around and he starts to do the go through the back, and that's played by Deborah Hill. We all know that
It is.
she was the one that played it.
It is.
Actually, I think there's like Jim Winber told me there was at least 5 or 6 people that played the character, including they wore the mask because they needed somebody. And the beauty of
Including
it,
Deborah.
you don't have to worry about who's underneath the mask because it's a mask. I mean, I don't know who that is. If you put the mask on now, I know it's you, but I mean, people would say, wow.
Right.
So, but again, the use of the music, and then it's disappeared, and then you start to hear that little
Right.
background, and then you hear it with and he's doing the stuff with the as he stabs his sister,
Yeah.
and then
The
it plays
reveal.
it out, and then they do the
The
big pull
reveal.
about, yeah, and
After
they're
after the POV going back down the stairs, getting that reveal of it being a 6-year-old child, it was another mind blown thing. I mean, that was something that was not really seen yet, except for like The Bad Seed, stuff like that.
Yeah, but we're talking about we did not attribute children couldn't murder in
Exactly.
our society's mind, but it does happen, and we know that happens. Murder's been around for ever since man's existed. It's his way of emotionally taking and resolving an issue that he doesn't care for, and that's sad. We try not to do that, but we again play mind tricks with each other, and especially today, 2021, 42 years later, we're looking at a movie, or actually, is it now 43 years later? 43 years. 43 years later, Ralphie. So the use of the music really set the tone. It's very much like when you saw things in Psycho, which came out, whatever, I guess that was 79, no, 42 years of 79 movie. So you're looking at this thing and you go, okay, whatever that is, 16, 17 years before, whatever, whatever the math is, forgive me, please don't hold that against me. It doesn't, the relevancy is that Hitchcock's masterpiece was the template, and Carpenter embraced that, and he just showed characters that we either liked or we didn't like, and the ones we didn't like were the ones, Ralphie, the ones that go first, right?
Those are the ones you cheer for.
Yeah,
I want to
that was
see him
it.
do his thing. Get him. Like, definitely.
Yeah, but going on at Ralphie, tell me quick, why would you want to kill that beautiful woman of a sister, man, when she was sure? I'm sorry, young guy. I'm like, wow, I'm sorry. That was just, maybe, well, brother, sister kind of thing. Who knows?
Yeah, exactly. I like to
Okay,
put it
so
like
let's
that.
talk about the characters now. So we've introduced to Michael briefly.
Right.
We show that he's extremely troublesome. He has serious issues. He's taken out of it. Now we're going to reveal new characters. So do we go to Halloween, and it's 1978, the day before the 30th, and now we're introduced to who?
Well, first we would go to Loomis and Marion Chambers.
Exactly. Who have with Donald Pleasance, I mean, he made a career out of Halloween. I mean, he was very lucky, very fortunate. He was like the Bond of his era. I mean, think about it. He Sean Connery
I
did 5 or
always thought
6
was
of them.
funny. What I always thought was funny about Dr. Loomis, and since we're going into Bond, Blofeld, that's played by Donald Pleasance, who is now portrayed in an Austin Powers movie by Mike Myers, which I've always thought that was weird. Like, was that on purpose?
I don't know. It's removed 6 times. Whatever that whole theory of whatever they call it. So we look at Pleasance, or let's call him by his character name because people remember him.
Yeah, Dr. Loomis.
So the doctor and I find it interesting. The doctor is riding in the passenger seat and the nurse is driving.
Right.
So, and she's smoking away and all that. And you see the subtleties of, the reference of the Red Rabbit matches, and that shows up later. I mean, beautiful placement. There's very little product placement in that movie because there really wasn't any sponsors.
Yeah, nothing really. Jiffy Pop, I think it was, or Jolly Time.
Yeah, and, whatever they're doing. So we're seeing that. Did you like the setup of how the doctor and the nurse were introduced and how that all came about?
I did actually, because that was on top of the reveal of having Michael, seeing Michael and it's a child, leading up into, which by the way is the Hollywood Reservoir, reaching the way up to the security gate and seeing the mental patients, but the banter between Marion and Dr. Loomis, about the Thorazine and all that type of stuff. I thought it was brilliant. That sets the tone on top of everything. Like, yeah.
The dialogue in the script was like the music.
Definitely.
Short, sweet, direct, explain something very quickly. And like you saw the conflict between the nurse and, well, why are we doing this? Don't you want, violating, the oath of trying to protect this guy. And they said, hell with that. And he said, why? This guy knew in his mind, this was bad. This guy was bad, but this is a human being. We don't sort of euthanize people,
Right.
intentionally. Well, we do actually. That's wrong. I don't even go down that
Well,
path
and this is
because
already, you got to remember, this is, Dr. Loomis already has 12 years of experience with Michael at this point.
mm-hmm.
That it's become very, you know, uh, basically Ahab and Moby Dick. It's the same thing,
So,
that
but
same,
in 1978, that was how many years after Roe v. Wade?
right?
A
You got me.
choice. Are we trying to send a message out? And then later on, we had the doctor that was doing suicide assistance,
Right.
right? And
Kevorkian, yeah.
yeah, and so we're thinking, well, is it right? What I have a problem with it. I've had family members that have had very serious illnesses. And
Right.
when you're dealing with cancer and that stuff, it's terminal. You make it comfortable, but at some point, when is it not comfortable? And
Right.
for that individual's life. And I
Right.
don't want to get into that. I don't think we need to
Well,
euthanize people here, but
no, no, definitely not, definitely not. But exactly what you just said, the conflict right there, you could see that between Marion and Dr. Loomis, because she's immediately when she says, "Well, what should we do while we have him in the courtroom? Hit him with Thorazine." She's like, "Are you serious? Like, it's barely gonna, he won't be able to sit up. That is the idea, or
yeah,
you never want him to get out, never, ever, like there is no remorse. I mean, you can kind of say that Loomis is right there is almost kind of the boogeyman right there, there is no,
really, if you think of they're synonymous, they're rule. I mean, I'm going to kill something else that's trying to kill everybody else.
yeah,
And when you
yeah.
think about that, Ralphie, that's wow. You have, I
Well,
mean, who's
without really any subcontext or anything, just from what we saw from him as a child, at first you're still kind of probably thinking, well, man, this is only a kid, but it's like it's not just a child. It's just like what John Carpenter said, it's much more than that. It's
that's only because we know the backstory a little bit, which is always one of the great strengths of Halloween 1. We didn't know why this guy did it. When you start to explain like that, which was done in other movies, it
right.
sort of diminishes the strength of the boogeyman because this
It does.
guy. And one other thing is, we don't know if this kid watched too many shoot 'em up movies,
Right.
cowboys and Indians killing them. I mean, that was America's sort of, social acceptance. It's all right to kill people if they're bad and you're good. Well, maybe this
Right.
kid just was indoctrinated with. I don't know. I'm not trying to psychoanalyze Michael Myers. I do like the movie. So the point is so the simplistic the simplistic addressing of the issues between the Loomis character and the nurse. Then we are reintroduced to Michael Myers jumping on a car, and he
Right.
steals the car and he goes off. And it was nice with the dialogue between the doctor and the head of the mental institute. Say, well, who taught him? Well, somebody did.
Yeah.
Somehow this guy knew how to get out of there and how to do that, which I find interesting.
Very.
But remember, in movies we suspend disbelief a lot of time, Ralphie, because it's a movie.
Well, we have to. I mean, if we make it too literal, it becomes more soap opera like,
I I have to
Start
admit, have you
falling
ever
out of
seen
it.
anybody in a movie theater and you watch the people instead of the theater? You watch the movie and you watch their faces and they're like, and some of them are like, they're at like a sporting event rooting for their team. No, don't do that. Pick
Right.
the knife up. What's wrong with you? Don't drop
Right.
the knife. Leave. Get out of there. Run. I mean, common sense stuff doesn't exist in horror movies, folks. Sorry. It never will. That's because we like to watch the idiots on the screen do the things we hopefully won't do in real life. So, anyway, so now we get past that, and then we get to the three principles that are systematically, two of them are killed.
Yes.
And
Well,
the movie
first
was
we got
originally going to be called.
we get Lori and Tommy first.
Sure, but the point I'm saying, well, we're introduced slowly to
Yeah.
this relationship between Tommy and Lori and then Lindsay and then and the sheriff and all, we start to.
Definitely.
But the point is, the movie originally was going to be titled
The Babysitter Killers.
exactly. And why didn't it get changed? Why did it get changed from the Babysitters to the title of
Well,
Halloween?
it was the first title, and this is an actual thing from Urin Yablans. Uh, it was the only movie that actually referenced Halloween. As simple as that sounds. There is no other movie aside that it has something to do with a holiday except for like Black Christmas or something, or Miracle on 34th Street, but that's not a horror movie. But except for Black Christmas, there is no other movie that's referencing towards a holiday like that.
Yeah.
And just like Mustafa Akhed said himself, you know, you can understand, you know, everybody knows what a babysitter is. Everybody.
Well, hopefully.
I would hope so. If not, then we have other problems to be worrying about aside from pregnancy. But
Yes.
everybody, just like he said, everybody knows what a babysitter is. And when you
Right.
introduce that along with as simple as a cover such as this,
Absolutely.
it's very intriguing. Very
Well,
intriguing.
the knife thing, that's why they use knives and guns and beautiful people, because people first impression is, I want to watch that because she's good looking, he's good looking. That's scary, that's dangerous.
Correct.
You know, I mean, when you think of the character now, we're going through it. So we look at, you know, you obviously have, you know, obviously the different characters. Let's go, obviously Lori, and then we have
Tommy.
no,
That,
there's the babysitters.
out of the babysitters. Oh, we have Lori and Annie.
Okay. Do you
Linda
think
is
they
not
were
really
close?
a babysitter. I think
They were really close friends, or do you think they were just?
Well, I think that uh, as it was shown and depicted, I think it was more or less Lori was kind of like the pity friend. Lori was more or less like they were the ones that would look over at the test to see the answers. You know what I mean? They were the ones that would, you know, obviously they're the promiscuous ones, and Lori was the straight laced one.
So she was the necessary evil.
Right. Yeah, and their
She
group,
had the
yes.
answers, is
And
really
their
what
and
it
their
is.
group, yes.
You know, I have to say, and then you have Linda. I mean, she was just, I hate to
Just a
say it,
party animal.
a party girl. Let's keep it clean because, you know, PJ and Nancy and all their friends of ours. And,
Right.
but, well, it's true. I mean, I told her, I said, you know, I saw the movie, I had a crush on you. And I said, it was when you went in to wash your clothes. I'm sorry. Any male, young male's like, wow, you know. But it wasn't, when you think about it, she's just wearing her underwear and it's nothing like it's like a bathing suit. What the hell? It puts on
Right.
the shirt. That was
Right.
very sexy in its day. And then, you
Yeah.
know, obviously, you know, Linda with her platform shoes, smoking her cigarettes, doing all the bad girl stuff. You
Totally.
know, you know, and there it is. I thank you for sharing that. That actually, Jim was telling me, Winburn, that is, he said that when she was writing the script, she used that a lot because she thought it was a very nice break in the dialogue because it was funny. It was comic relief that they sort of needed because these
Yes.
actors, you know, they were young, beginning actors. Some of them maybe it wasn't their first movie. I mean, PJ had done Carrie and something else, I believe. You know,
I want to say she already did. She was already Riff Randall, I believe. She already did Rock and Roll High School.
yeah, so she sort of knew that image, and she's a lovely lady. If you ever get a chance to meet
Oh,
PJ, go up and say
definitely,
hi to her.
definitely.
One of
She
the
was very,
sweetest
very nice.
people, and she really just looks pretty much the same as she did 40 years ago. By the
Yeah.
way, she did a voiceover. She was the teacher
In
in
2018.
2018 for those of you that have seen 2018. And the beauty, we'll talk about 2018 in the next segment, but let's stick with this. So we get these three and they keep on getting into trouble in some way or another. And you know, with Annie in the voice of John being the boyfriend Paul, and
Yes.
we know that. I thought it was very funny how Paul's calling and Lindsay picks up the phone, and what does she do? Okay, she's at the watch and she hangs up on him.
Hangs up on.
How many
My
times we
wife
experienced
points
that, guys? You know, I
My
mean, we
wife
got, you
points
know, I'll
that out
get him.
every
Okay, yeah,
time.
sure. Boom, right? You know, and the whole setup on that. And I loved how they kept on inserting Michael 1 minute here, 1 minute there.
Right.
And he
Right.
was, I got to tell you, the creepiest thing is there's a stalker. He was a peeping Tom in a mask. Now, we didn't know he was going to kill anybody again at that point. We just thought he was just freaking out. But we sort of knew that he was probably going to kill these people because he killed the guy for the coveralls and he stole the, the car and
rope
everything else. So, I mean, this guy had an agenda. There's no question. So the scene, it was funny when you go to when Annie goes to the car, and the car is unlocked. She forgot the key, or it was locked, and the keys were gone. So she gets in the second time, and the car's unlocked. I mean, hello, was she really a brunette? I don't know. I just want to ask you.
My wife says that all the time.
And I
Aside from
love her.
singing about Paul.
Yeah, she's like, she was thinking, and the whole song business. She said, I improvised all that stuff,
Yeah.
and it was just improv, which is the beauty of Carpenter's allowing the actors to be the character.
Which
And that
also, just the two of us, that song was also improvised.
sure, sure. And that was a really weird scene where we saw the reveal. And
Yeah.
there's a spoiler here, folks. You see when she goes to Annie goes up to see who the guy is, and what does she see? What does she see? The smoke goes across the face. There's because Carpenter's smoking, and it's like, oh. But you know what? They didn't have the money to fix that reshoot. There was 2 takes and moving on, dude. That was about it.
That's what makes that movie also great. There's also like these little Easter eggs, if you will, that make it what it is. I mean, also in that scene, you have 2 people that lived in that house, in Brackett's house, that watched them filming.
Yeah, it's like they couldn't get him out of there. So what the hell?
Yeah.
We'll just quickly move past. And the quintessential line that I love in it is when Laurie bumps into Brackett and, oh, sorry, sir, whatever, sir, so proper, so whatever. And then what is his response?
Everyone's entitled to one good scare.
And you know what? I got to tell you, if there was a mantra for that movie and any of these, it's that.
Oh, it definitely is.
Yeah,
definitely.
I know. We'll address that when we talk about Halloween Kills and the difference between 40 some years later and a sequel and the sequel to it and whatnot. So we get all that going on, and it's like a good old, it's a small town, atmosphere. I think it's funny they're smoking a joint and they're getting high.
Yeah.
And they pull up to see her father. Oh my God. Hey, why not just keep on going? Why would you stop? We're smoking, and this guy's a police officer, and he says it later on. Oh, you got it wrong. You got it wrong, Loomis. They're out getting high and whatever. I'm thinking,
kids parking, getting high.
Yeah, you know what? I'm looking, Ralphie. That car must have smelled. Come on.
Oh, it had to. It had to.
And which he's an expert.
Which brings me back to what we were just talking about, Laurie. If you watch between her, I don't think she's done it that many times. Just the way that she's holding everything, just the way that she's choking on it and all that. That also shows you what Annie was really about, what Annie was actually doing on the sidelines and whatever as well. She wasn't as prim and proper.
Well, Annie, yes. Laurie had no experience with anything. And I'm not just limiting myself to smoking a joint. I'm talking about Ben Tramer, okay? And she's going, uh-oh. Yeah. Well, you liked him? Oh, yeah, like she's feeling her oats, but
I didn't know you thought of things like that.
It's like you're looking at that and you're going, okay. So we get into that. We get the development of those characters. How did you feel about the characters that follow that, subsequently? You saw, the obviously the doctor's obsessed, which is funny because in 2018, somebody else becomes obsessed. Okay, we'll address that. But you'd see the cross, whatever the template was, they just inverted characters to do the same thing differently.
Yeah.
Okay.
Definitely.
I have to say, when it gets to the final scenes where we're getting to the houses, the babysitters, and you're going back and forth. I love how the dynamics, they started escalating. The third act was really coming together very well.
Yes.
And and the use of lighting. I mean, in the beginning, when Myers meets Tommy at the school, and he drops and he's all rejected, all that. You notice the continuity of the outfit was green. Okay. Yes. The coveralls were green, Kelly green, but then later on they became blue. And I asked Jim about that, and he said, well, part of it was lighting, but part of it was because they just hadn't used that. they used that for the other guys.
Yeah.
You know, because they
Yes.
didn't wear the same. They couldn't. They got. You know, they didn't. You know, Tommy
It was a thrift
Tommy Lee
store for 'em,
Wallace is a lot
you know?
bigger than Nick Castle, and Jim Winmer's a lot bigger than both
Yeah.
those two guys. You know, um, I will say the one point is when we talk about, you know, the chases and the knife and the dropping and picking up and screaming at and the music and, you know, um, the one violation of the Hitchcock template for me was the reveal of Michael Myers when he slams into Laurie's choking her out and she pulls
Right.
the mask off. Would you agree?
Yes. I would, yes, actually, because that puts, like we were talking about, uh, you know, there are certain parts of Michael, like cinematic parts, that we don't need. Like a subtle backstory, something quick. Like we saw what he did when he was 6, so we already seen him unmasked. We don't need to see that again.
Yeah,
I
I
think
think that
that
was a
was
mistake.
something. I believe it was too, actually. To
I
have
think,
somebody that
how
just
would you
like
have
that just
changed it then?
revealed
How would you have done that scene differently than what Carpenter did?
something as simple as regular editing like you saw in the Halloween 2. See the pull up, but you don't need to do the reveal. Show him pulling it back down.
Sure.
Simple.
I
We
would
don't
have
need to
gone
see it.
for point of view differences. The biggest thing I would have done when she pulled the mask off him and she saw his face, point of view should have been from Michael Myers looking at her and her reaction. He goes, the scariest thing she's ever seen. Like, oh my
Right.
God, I can't believe it. You know?
Right.
And as he pulls it, and then we cut back to him pulling it down. Then you
Right.
wouldn't have needed that actor for that scene.
Right.
Now, I'm not trying to take anything away from him at all. You know, I've met Tony and I like him. He and I got along. And you know, but personally there was no need for it. But he's in 1, he's in 2, he's
Yeah.
in 18, he's in 21. Dude has gotten a lot of mileage out of this thing, you know what I'm saying? But they
Right.
did cut him out a little bit on that because of
Right.
that. So that was the thing about me. As to the stunts, let's address that because the magic for me in a movie is, first of all, the eye of the director and a vision. Okay.
Yes.
Second thing is the support factors of the right cinematographers, the correct lighting, and the capturing. And you can take a movie like 1978's Halloween, and with the great cameras that they used, it turned it into a masterpiece.
Yes.
Today, you can take your camera, I don't know what kind of camera you use, an Apple, Android, whatever. The
The
cameras
phone.
on these things are insane. You
Yes.
can make a whole movie and make it as good, if not better, than what they do. You know, I mean, it's with no budget. You know, it's amazing. So you have those elements. The music support makes it everything. The soundtrack is either. So I don't. I'm more of a fan of original music rather than uh you know, a licensed music. Though there was a couple in there. You remember which ones those are?
Yeah. Blue Oyster Cult. We also had well, didn't the Coupe de Villes actually do something in that?
They did, but what else was in there?
And we had Blue Oyster Cult, Don't Fear the
Cordettes.
Reaper.
The
Oh, the
Cordettes with
Cordettes, that's right.
yeah, with
Yeah,
the Sandman.
that's right.
And you know, you don't need a lot, just a little bit, because it's like salt. The more they put on there, the more it takes away from it. So you think
Right.
about, but the original score is iconic. It truly is. There's nothing you can have people go and try to pursue it. Even the subsequent movies that he came involved with, he did 2, obviously, with Alan Hallworth, who's a very, very good
Yes.
friend of mine, great guy.
Yeah.
They dressed it up a
4 and
little
5.
bit, made it. Well, Al went on to do 2 through 6. And he also
Yeah.
did
Oh,
the
that's right. You
Thing.
did do 2. You
He
did
did
do 2.
Christine, one of my favorite movies, Christine. I love the
Very.
soundtrack. I love the movie. And it's funny is it sort of seemed like Stephen King wrote on that movie was based a lot of, he had to be inspired by the car. He had to be,
Oh.
because that came out in 70 something. You know what I'm saying? You know, that was,
Yeah.
you know, with George Barris's incredible creation of that, you know, that sinister vehicle. But you
Yeah.
get into that in the music. And then finally, I think it's not what you say, but what you don't say. And the best part of that would be at the very end. I'll jump back in a second, but the very end, when you're talking about the absence of Michael, but you heard him breathe in, which is like the Darth Vader thing, man. I'm serious. I mean, you hear that breathing, you know Michael Myers is there, and then the support of the theme of Carpenter's score, and it just, where is the boogeyman? Where is the boogeyman?
Which we do get to experience that a little bit when she goes running back to the Doyle house.
Mm-hmm.
You know, before she gets him with the pin in the side of the neck, you hear the heavy breathing and stuff, and you know right there, like it's not going to be good. Right?
Yeah. Well, the absence of sound, except for now they interject the introduction
with
of
breathing.
his breathing, and I'm going to tell you right now, that is creepy. Ask your wife or any woman you meet, what are your thoughts about if somebody just stares at you a little too long, or you feel they're following you? They're going to say, that is too weird. Please don't stalk me. Stalkers are, and women are always going to be victimized because they are perceived as the inferior of the two sexes, even though today politically we're not trying to do that. But I'm just telling you right now, you get some dude 6'3" with a knife coming at you. I don't care who you are. You could be Mike Tyson. That dude sticks you with the knife, you're probably going to get bled out. If he gets you, he gets you. So we get to that part before it, and then we see at the end, obviously, you know, we revisit the beauty of Carpenter. He revisits all those scenes. And what does he do? Where does he go back to, Ralphie? He revisits
back to the breathing, back to our breathing, and back to our theme.
Yeah, and he shows the house, the original house. He shows the stairwell. He shows the backyard where there's nobody there. He's showing, and you know, Loomis is just looking up, and obviously the quintessential response. What's the boogeyman? Was that the boogeyman?
As a matter of fact, it was.
And you know what? That's the beauty of, see, the boogeyman never dies. So when we get to part 21, we get to part 3, which comes out in 22. I have a problem with this one. I mean, this franchise, don't do the Bond thing and kill him off. It's not going to work. We need our Michael Myers moments. One of the greatness, though, as I said before, was besides the lack of, or the absence of things, was the greatness of having the stunt being shot by Jim Winburn, being shot numerous times. And he falls out the balcony, and then obviously Loomis goes to check it out. And Carpenter told me, he said, I wanted him to play it 2 different ways and see which one I figured I'd know which one he'd want. And his reaction was amazing. But Winburn, who had, Jim Winburn's a very close friend of mine. I love Jim a lot. He's been with me numerous times. We've honored him in Las Vegas with Official Days. He's been part of the Car Stars. His background also for you folks is that he was in Knight Rider, and he doubled David Hasselhoff for several years. Barry Boswick for 20. He's done insane kinds of things. I mean, he gets paid, and he likes it to fall off building on fire and stuff. And I got to be honest with you, I see a building, I don't want to fall off it. You know, we were going to actually recreate his fall for 1 year, but because of COVID-19, it didn't happen. That was going to happen that year, and I was saddened. But I did it in the back here. I shot it, my commercial with him, and he played Loomis. I played Myers, and when I fall off, I fall, and I'm acting like I'm falling, and then I start spinning around, and then I'm looking, and I'm going, "Come on, how long before I hit the ground?" And boom, and then I'm laying there, exactly the same pose, and I look up and go. And Jimmy started laughing his ass off. He thought it was funny as hell. I shared that with Carpenter, and he said, "Where do you come up with this?" I said, "You did it." So stunts, stuntmen, costumes. That was brilliance on Tommy Lee Wallace. That mask, ripping that off of the Shatner mask. Look at the career that you have and other people have. Definitely. I mean, look at that mask back there. That's fearful. You look at it, you go, God Almighty, that's not normal. You know,
very.
You look at the guy next to him, and that's supposed to be older than the final one, where the dude's he's fried like a piece of chicken. But we get to this, and so the bottom line, let's just conclude. Let's finalize everything, because we'll pick up these other ones. But the long story short now, let's conclude. What are your thoughts, very quickly, just sum it up about Halloween 1978, John Carpenter's Halloween 1978.
As simple as I can get it. Masterpiece. Masterpiece. One of the best. Something that's still being used today, something that's still effective today, because it's a masterpiece. You take all of those key elements that we just put, and it can't be done by everybody because we got all of these other attempts that were trying to be done and whatnot. Without John Carpenter, without Deborah Hill, Tommy Lee Wallace, Jim, you don't have Dean Cundy, you don't have the same Jamie Lee and all this, you don't have that type of, I guess, starstruck type horror movie anymore. I mean, when you do, it's something that's, trying to reproduce something that has already been done.
Well, when you get down to it, Ralphie, you're right. It is the template for everything. Now look at Scream. Look at everything else that came out afterward, that were inspired
by. Which, by the way, Scream was Wes Craven's, love note to Halloween. There is even a full segment where they even have the rules of horror movies while they're watching Halloween.
I might be wrong. We'll have to address this, but I believe we can talk about that in that review. But I believe that was used long before Scream came out with the phone call, and
yeah.
I can't remember the movie off the top of my head right now.
When a Stranger Calls.
Yeah, that's it. And the thing is that when you're looking at Halloween, we summed it up. The key was that he had to keep it simple, and he made it. And what happened later is that when the budgets got increased, the quality did not improve. They tried to put lightning back into bottles, and it failed. And the people that watch it knew it, because it's like going to your favorite restaurant, and then somebody else goes, and you go somewhere else that does something similar. You go, it's not the same. It didn't satisfy me. So the beauty, like I said, we collectively looked at this Halloween. We've addressed things that nobody talks about right now. The back things that are really important, why they were there. And that's the quintessential essence of why Halloween is the gold standard for horror movies. And it kicked off the genre of slasher movies. But you can still use the template in different movies. And a good example of that is that Michael Myers transcended from being a human being to something completely evil that was not human. Yeah. And the greatest example of that, for those that are out there, would be 1984, The Terminator with Schwarzenegger. Right. You look at that. I mean, the way the guy just relentlessly goes, you can't kill him.
Jason Voorhees.
I would think when you get into the subsequent, because the first movie, no, because that was twisted. The mother was the killer.
Definitely.
But later on,
Halloween is what set that, that foreground for the masked killer, the indestructible masked killer. Even with Terminator, that's the same thing. The indestructible masked killer.
Well, the mask was a false human face, and he ripped it off, and then there's the evil. And again, that's that. So Ralphie, before we go, is there a website that you have that you want to give?
Let me go ahead and plug you guys really quick. As you guys can see here, I'm wearing the shirt right now. But once you go on ahead after this, before you go to KC Entertainment, come and visit me over at etsy.com/shop/The Movie Alchemist. We have it all and some more. We are, second to none, and we are always affordable for everybody.
I'll make sure before in the credits we'll put that down so it gives it. Anyway, my name is Paul Casey. I'm really grateful that Ralph came on today. I call him Ralphie. And this guy's passion and understanding of horror movies is very deep, and he has a great understanding of the plots, the stories, and whatnot. So this is really the beginning. I'm really thankful that you could be on it. My name again is Paul Casey, paulcasey.vegas. And if you're interested in Halloween, come and visit the SinCityHalloween.com. Otherwise, don't be scared. It's only Halloween.
Everyone's entitled to one good
Thank you so much, sir. Take care. God bless. Be safe, everyone.
Thank you, sir. It was good talking to you.
Bye.